Welcome to MyBodyzBetter and BrainzBody, where you teach your brain to control your muscles. Remember to enjoy yourselves, and that there is no good stretching at all, not even those little stretches. Do this like you're a child exploring your body. BrainzBody uses movements, not exercises, and to make the maximum change in your body, we're going to need to change the information in your brain. This means that you're going to be moving within a comfort zone where you have no stretches at all, so soon you can be saying, "My body's better." Okay, let's get started. First, lie on your back, arms by your sides, legs stretched out, and your feet a comfortable distance apart. Just first notice how your heels touch, and notice, do they touch in exactly the same spot? Does the same weight touch? And notice if there's any difference between your right and left leg, going from your heels through your calves, knees, your thighs, and into your buttocks. Then notice the small of your back sit off the floor. Notice exactly where it gets heavy in the middle of your back. Notice the heaviest area, and the way your shoulders touch, and how your arms are. Finally, just notice what your neck feels like. Now bend your knees and place them flat on the floor, and raise your hands so that they're facing towards the ceiling, and bring your palms together. Your hands should be right over your shoulders. And in this position, roll onto your right side. So your arms are going to be stretched straight out in front of you. Your knees will be bent, and you'll be lying on your right side. If you need a pillow, please put one under your head to support your head. Remember, in BrainzBody, being comfortable is the first and most important thing in order for you to learn. And in this position on your right side, just slide your feet forward a little bit so that your knees form a right angle, and let your knees come up towards your chest a little bit higher so that your arms and the upper part of your legs are parallel. And in this position, just very gently pushing from your shoulder, slide your left hand along your right hand. This is not a large movement. You're only going to move an inch or two. Just keep repeating this movement and notice what muscles you use to push your shoulder forward so that your arm and your left hand slides along your right hand. Just back and forth, nice and simple. Make this a small, smooth movement. And now stop that movement, and using your left hip, slide your left leg along the top of your right leg. This movement may only be a half an inch. Remember, it's not the size of the movement. It's the quality and the control you have. We're teaching your brain here. We're not trying to do some sort of an exercise. So making this movement very big won't make it better. You may only be able to slide a quarter of an inch. It's just important that you push from your hip, just back and forth. Make this a nice, simple movement. And notice the muscles you're using now to move your leg. Notice which muscles you use. And now stop that and go back and move your hand a couple of more times, pushing from your left shoulder. Just slide that left hand along the right hand and notice if you feel any similar muscles. Just do that a few times and then stop that movement and go back and move your leg again. And notice that you're using some similar muscles, but you're using them very differently. And just notice what this feels like. Go back again and move your arm a few times. And then see if you can feel down into your legs what you're doing to move your arms. Are you using any leg muscles? And if you are, what leg muscles are you using? And then stop that, and once again, push from your hip and just notice how your leg moves and the muscles that you're using. And then stop both of those things, roll onto your back with your hands by your sides, and just stretch your legs out and rest for a moment, and notice if there's a difference between the right and left side of your body. Notice if there's a difference in the way your legs are touching the floor. Notice if there's a difference in your buttocks right to left, and in the small of your back. See if you feel a difference in your rib cage, in the middle of your back, and in your shoulders. And once again, roll onto your right side. Arms stretched straight out in front of you, and your knees up just a little bit. And this time, as you push your left shoulder forward and slide your left hand along the right hand, breathe in as you push, and then breathe out as you come back to center. And just notice the difference in what that feels like. Notice if there's a difference in the size of the movement. Just do that a few times, and then stop and just take a couple of breaths and just relax and recall that feeling. And now take a breath in and breathe out as you push your left shoulder forward and your left hand slides along. And notice, do you go a little farther? Just try those two and compare the feelings. Notice the difference in the size of the movement, and notice the difference in the feeling in the muscles that you're using. And then just stop doing that, and once again, move your legs. But this time, as you slide that left hip forward, breathe in, and then let it come back as you breathe out. And just repeat that 3 or 4 times. Then stop and just take a few breaths, and then take a breath in, and as you breathe out, push that hip forward so that your left leg is sliding along the right leg. The knees are just going past one another a little bit. This is not a large movement, and notice the difference in the feeling. Go back and forth between the two. Push a few times breathing in, and then a few times breathing out as you slide that hip forward. And notice what feels different. And now just stop both of those movements, lie there for a moment, and just recall the difference in the feelings. And now, pull your arm back a little bit, and then let it come to neutral so that your left hand is sliding back along the right hand. So you're pulling the shoulder back just a little bit, and then letting it come to neutral. And you can see that if you breathe in, that comes back a little bit better. And then breathe out and let it come to neutral. And just do that a few times and notice what it feels like. Notice the muscles you're using. And pull your left hip back so that the left knee slides a little bit along the right thigh. And then let it come back to neutral. And you'll see again that if you breathe in as you pull that hip back, breathe out as you let it come to neutral. And just see what that feels like. Do that 3 or 4 times. And once again, roll onto your back with your hands by your sides, your legs stretched out, and just notice the way your body's touching the floor. It's very important that you take rests from time to time, so if at any point you feel tired during BrainzBody, just stop and rest. But notice now the difference between the way your left leg and your right leg are touching the floor. Notice the difference in how much area touches. Notice the difference in your buttocks and the small of your back and your ribs and your shoulders. You can feel that these changes are going on, and this change is a result of learning. The difference that's happening between the right side and the left side is we're only teaching one half of your brain. And the changes you feel between the right and left side of your body are a result of that learning. So once again, roll onto your right side. And this time, as you breathe out, push forward with your left shoulder, and as you breathe in, bring your left shoulder back behind you a little bit, so that you're combining those two movements, that you're pushing the hand forward, and then you're bringing the hand back just a little bit, and notice what that feels like. Get a feeling for the different muscles that you're using. See how far down your body you can feel those muscles being used. And notice how your shoulder is moving inside itself. Notice that the shoulder joint is moving just a little bit. And see if you can get a sense of the muscles that are connected to that shoulder joint. Feel the muscles along your shoulder blade and how those are used to pull your shoulder back. Back and forth. Just breathing out as that arm slides forward, and as you breathe in, it comes back behind you. Notice what this feels like, and now just stop that, and once again, slide your left knee forward, and then bring your left knee back. And this is a movement from your hip. You're sliding the left hip forward as you breathe out, sliding the left hip back past neutral as you breathe in. Back and forth, breathing out to go forward, back to come in. And notice what this feels like. Get a sense of that whole movement. Notice what your right hip is doing. Notice how the left hip joint moves just a little bit. And notice the muscles in your back and the muscles in your abdomen you use to slide that leg forward and to bring the leg back past neutral. Back and forth. And then just stop that for a moment. And one time, push your arm forward and then bring it back. And then one time, push your leg forward and bring it back. And alternate between those two. One time breathing out, pushing the arm forward, and as you breathe in, that arm comes back, and then the next time you're going to push the leg forward, and as you breathe in, the leg comes back. Back and forth, compare those two, and notice how they're the same and exactly where they're different. And it's very key that you start to understand the differences. Remember that awareness is detecting, feeling, and understanding smaller and smaller differences in your body. And again, roll onto your back, stretch your legs out with your hands by your sides, and just notice the way your body's touching the floor. Notice any changes going on between the right and left side. Take a moment to just feel your ribs as you're breathing and see if you can start to detect a difference in the way the ribs are moving as you're breathing. Notice the difference in your legs between the right and left, the difference in your buttocks, the small of your back, the middle back and your shoulders. Notice if that heavy part of the middle of your back is a little more spread out now. Is more of your back touching on that left side? And is that pressure a little more even? And once again, roll onto your right side. Now as you push your left shoulder forward, roll your head and look towards the ceiling. And as you pull your left shoulder back, roll your head so you're looking down towards the floor. Again, stay inside your comfort zone. You're not trying to go any farther than you can. If you can only look halfway towards the ceiling, if you can only turn your head partway towards the floor, that's as far as you can comfortably. Just make this a smooth movement and notice what it's done to the size of the movement of your hands as they go back and forth. And now stop that, and this time, as you slide your shoulder forward, look down towards the floor, and as you bring your shoulder back, look up towards the ceiling, and notice what this does to the size of the movement. Just go back and forth and get a feeling for the difference of that movement when you're pulling your shoulder back and looking towards the ceiling and pushing your shoulder forward and looking towards the floor. And stop that and go back to the first one again. So as you slide your shoulder forward, your head is turning towards the ceiling. As you pull your shoulder back, your head is turning and looking towards the floor. Back and forth, do a few of those. And then stop, and once again, as you pull your shoulder back, looking up towards the ceiling, as you push your shoulder forward, look down towards the floor. Back and forth, and just notice what that little small movement of your head does to the size of this movement. Now let's combine two things to get a clearer understanding of how this all works together. So this time, as you slide your left hand forward, the left shoulder coming forward, breathe in and roll your head towards the ceiling. And then as the shoulder comes back behind you, breathe out and roll your head to the floor. And just notice what this does to the movement. Really make sure you only move as far as is comfortable. Notice that this is making that movement smaller. Notice what it feels like, and notice where you feel it. Notice if there's a part of you that just feels a little odd, feels a little bit out of sorts or disconnected. And now just stop that for a moment. Just take a couple of breaths. And this time, breathe out, roll your head down as you slide forward. Breathe in, roll your head up towards the ceiling as you pull that shoulder back. Back and forth. Do this movement and notice the size of the movement. Notice what it feels like. Notice the size and the ease with which you're able to do the movement this way. Stop that and just go back again and compare. So as you're sliding the shoulder forward, head's going towards the ceiling, you breathe in. Make this all happen at the same time. And then as the shoulder comes back, the head goes down and you're breathing out. Make these very coordinated so everything is moving together. You'll see that it's smaller. See which muscles you're using. And now just stop that for a moment and go back again, sliding the shoulder forward, head going down, breathing out. Shoulder coming back as the breath comes in and the head rolls up. Back and forth, notice what that feels like. Just compare those two, and then just stop that for a moment. Without making any real effort to move your shoulders or your legs, just roll your head so you look up towards the ceiling and then roll your head so you look down towards the floor. Breathing in as you go up towards the ceiling, breathing out as you go down towards the floor. Just notice what that feels like. Notice what muscles you're using to do that movement. And now stop that for a moment, and this time as you roll your head to look up towards the ceiling, breathe out. And as you roll your head to look down towards the floor, breathe in. And notice the difference in that movement. Go back again and just do a couple where you're rolling your head up, breathing in, and rolling your head down, breathing out. Back and forth. And then just try again, rolling your head up, breathing out, rolling your head down, breathing in. Get clear about the feeling in that. And once again, just stop that. And roll your head as you breathe in, arm coming back. Roll your head down, shoulder going forward, breathing out. Back and forth, make this nice and smooth. And see how much larger that has become. And now let's add our legs into this. So as we slide our shoulder forward, slide your left hip forward, let the head go down. As we breathe in and the shoulder comes back and the head goes towards the ceiling, let the hip come back. And just go back and forth with those two and notice how much larger and easier this movement has become. And once again, roll onto your back, stretch your legs out with your hands by your sides, and just rest and notice the difference now in the way your body's touching the floor. You may start to feel a difference in your face. Feel a difference in the way your shoulders are laying on the floor. Is there a difference in your arms? Is there a difference in the way the ribs are moving, in the low back, in the buttocks, and in your legs, and in your heels? Notice the complete right and left side of your body. Just get a sense for that whole side of you and the difference in how they feel as they touch the floor. Roll onto your right side. Just lie there and breathe and listen to this next instruction. You're going to push your left shoulder forward as you pull the left hip back, and then you'll pull the left shoulder back as the left hip goes forward. You'll do that back and forth. And now see if you can do this movement simply and easily, pushing the left shoulder forward as you pull the left hip back, and then the left hip forward as the left shoulder comes back. Back and forth. See if you can make this smooth and make it so that both pieces move at the same time. And now stop that for a moment and just slide your left hip forward and the left hip back. And as the left hip goes forward, look towards the ceiling. As the left hip comes back, roll your head and look towards the floor. Back and forth so your head is going in the opposite direction of your hips. Back and forth, see if you can make this nice and smooth. And then stop that. And as the left hip goes forward, the head goes down towards the floor. As the left hip comes back, the head goes up towards the ceiling. You'll see that your shoulders move just a little bit. And now, keeping your head going up towards the ceiling as the hip comes back and the head going down towards the floor as the hip goes forward. And as you continue to do this, move your shoulder in the opposite direction. So as the hip is going forward and the head is going down, the shoulder is coming back. And then as the head is going up and the hip is coming back, the shoulder is going forward. Back and forth. See what it takes to make this a smooth movement so that that shoulder is going in the opposite direction from your head and your hip. And just notice what this feels like. And now, stop that movement. And this time, as the hip is sliding forward and back, bring your shoulder forward to the hip coming back and the head going down. And then as the hip goes forward, the shoulder comes back, and the head comes up. So now your shoulder and your head are moving together, and they're opposite from your hip. And just go back and forth and see if you can make this a smooth movement. Your shoulder going forward, head rolling down as the hip goes back. And then as the head comes up and the shoulder comes back, the hip is going forward, back and forth. Make this nice and smooth. And now just stop that and just take a few breaths. And now sliding your hip and your shoulder forward, roll your head down. Hip, shoulder, and head all coming back together. Let them all move together. Your breath is coming in as the shoulder comes back, the hip comes back, and the head goes to the ceiling. Breath's going out as everything moves forward. Your head rolls down towards the floor. And just notice what this movement feels like. Notice how much more fluid it is. And once again, roll onto your back. Put your hands by your sides and just stretch out and rest and notice the way your body's touching the floor. Get a nice clear sense of the difference between the right and left side of your body. Feel the difference in your legs. Feel the difference in your buttocks, the small of your back, in your ribs in the middle of your back, and in your shoulders right to left. See if you can feel more in your face now. Look around your eyes and your lips. Some people even talk about feeling a difference in their tongue at this point. Look very carefully and become very aware of the difference between the right and left side of your body. Roll onto your right side. And now as you breathe in and roll your head to look towards the ceiling, lift your left hand up off of your right hand and bring it with the elbow straight so it's facing up towards the ceiling. As you breathe out, just let your head roll back and your hand come down. And just keep repeating that. Breathing in, rolling your head up, hand coming towards the ceiling, and then let your breath out, your hand comes back down, your head rolls back over. Back and forth, just make this nice and smooth, and notice the muscles that you're using. Notice the difference in using these muscles as opposed to just pulling your shoulder back. So stop that movement for a moment. And this time, as you roll your head towards the ceiling, leaving your hand down, just pull that left shoulder back. As you breathe out, just let the shoulder come forward, the head roll back over. Back and forth, make this nice and smooth, and notice what this feels like. And now stop that, and once again, raise your left hand up towards the ceiling as you breathe in, head's going up, and breathing out as everything comes back down. And notice the difference between those two things. Just do 2 or 3 lifting the hand, and then do 2 or 3 where you just pull the hand back and leave the hand down on the other hand, but just pull the shoulder back, rolling your head, breathing in, and then raise the hand up and notice what's different. Notice what you feel in your pelvis and your legs as you do this. And now stop that movement for a moment. And this time, as you breathe in, just lift your left knee off of your right knee so it comes up towards the ceiling. It doesn't need to come all the way up. Just let it come up as far as it can. Leave your hand down on your right hand. Just breathing in, let that leg come up and let it come back down. And notice the muscles you're using. Notice the difference in that. And then just compare that to just pulling the leg back as you breathe in, letting the leg come back to neutral as you breathe out. Pulling the leg back as you breathe in, letting the leg come back to neutral as you breathe out. And then raise the leg up towards the ceiling and let it come back down. And now combine those two movements so that your hand comes up and your leg comes up as your head rolls up. And you'll see that it's easier to even go past that center point of facing up just towards the ceiling. Don't try to roll all the way onto your back. Just let yourself go a little bit farther. And then come back down and notice what that feels like when you combine those two movements. And once again, on your right side, just pull back the shoulder and the hip as the head goes up towards the ceiling and let them come back to neutral as you breathe out. Just pulling them back, not lifting them up, just pulling them back and letting them forward. And now lifting both of the left hand and the left knee at the same time and letting them come back down. And notice those combined movements and what they feel like. And once more, roll onto your back, stretch your legs out, hands by your sides, and just notice the difference between the right and left side of your body. Just get a feeling for your leg, the buttocks right to left, the difference in your ribs and your chest and your shoulders. Feel the small of your back and the whole of your back, the difference between the right and left side. And one more time, roll onto your right side. And keeping your hands together, raise both your right arm and your left arm, keeping your elbows straight. Your head is turning, looking towards the ceiling. Raise both of those hands up towards the ceiling. It's not important how far you come up in the air. Just bring them up and then breathe out and let them down. Don't try to hold them for any length of time. They're just coming up and going down. And just do that a few times and notice what it feels like. And now let your arms down and just lie there for a moment and take a couple of breaths. And now, without pushing down with your arms at all, see if you can raise both your right knee and your left knee towards the ceiling at the same time. And notice what happens. Try to raise both of your legs at the same time without pushing down on your arms, without pushing down on your feet, just rolling those knees up in the air. And you'll see that you're not able to do this. You can lift your left knee. Go ahead and lift the left knee. And you can lift the left knee and the arms. Just go lift the left knee and both of your arms at the same time and notice what this feels like. And now with everything down on your side, see what it takes to try and lift both of your knees at the same time, and you'll see that it's impossible to do that. And the reason for this is your pelvis is the anchor to your body. And now, stand up and walk around and just notice the way your body feels. And just notice the difference between the right and left side of your body. Just get a feeling for your leg, the buttocks right to left, the difference in your ribs and your chest and your shoulders. And walk around and just notice the way your body feels. And so one more time, just roll onto your back, stretch your legs out. Just take a little rest for a moment and just recall all of those things that you've just learned. Recall what it was like to lie on your right side and bring that shoulder back. Let it go forward. Bring the shoulder back with the head rolling. Let it go forward. Think about what it was like to bring the shoulder and the hip and the head all at the same time, and then they go forward. Just recall those sensations. See if you can recreate the sensations in your body exactly the way they happened. And once again, bend your knees, hands towards the ceiling, and this time roll onto your left side. And now, one time, as you breathe in, roll your head and look towards the ceiling, and then roll your head and look down towards the floor. And then roll your head and look towards the ceiling as you pull back that right shoulder, and roll your head and look towards the floor as you push that right shoulder forward. And then this time, roll your head, shoulder coming back as your hip comes back. And then as you breathe out, the shoulder, hip, and head all go in the opposite direction. Just do that one more time and make it nice and smooth. And now, as you roll your head and look up towards the ceiling, raise your right hand towards the ceiling. Let it come back down. And then all three together, the head's going towards the ceiling, hand and leg, and let them come back down. And do that one more time, up and back down. And then roll onto your back and notice the way your body's touching the floor. And if you don't feel perfectly balanced, take a moment after this. Go to each side and just see if there's a difference between the right and left and how you move. And now, stand up and walk around and just notice the way your body feels. Notice the way you move. Remember, your brain controls your body. and BrainzBody is giving you the control you want. Enjoy yourselves. Each day, if you will spend less than a minute doing conscious repetitions of parts of MyBodyzBetter movements, you will deepen your new positive habits, giving you elegant posture effortlessly and automatically. Simply, MyBodyzBetter.